seems to be pretty reliable.
Sweet. Does it stream right into the group? That's awesome.
Yeah, so right into the group. So
Sweet.
and then straight into our YouTube channel as well. So YouTube looks like it's rolling. Facebook is taking its sweet time. So
You were banking on the other way around. Come
I
on,
know
man.
usually YouTube takes a lot longer than Facebook does. And the thing about YouTube that I don't like is it starts playing right away
Mm,
versus like in Facebook, I have to hit go live, which is kind of nice when you're trying to like get all the connections going.
yeah.
So, all right, what we might need to do, I'll give it another 10 seconds, is relink it. So let me just see. Yeah, that should be working. Dumb. All right, I want to stop here. Get my Facebook back up.
All this technology garbage, man. I'm telling you.
It's great when it works. It's
Right?
amazing when it works. So we are just going to reset this Facebook stream quick. Right. And then I'll have chat open here. I'll have the chat open on Facebook and also the chat open on YouTube as well. So I'll pull in questions as they come as well. So
Can people watch in Riverside?
yeah, so people can watch in Riverside as
I
well.
didn't know that. I thought it was all private recording. That's cool.
No, so yeah, it kind of gives people wherever you're at type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sweet. That's really cool. Awesome.
Maybe this is going to. I might need. Well, I shouldn't have to reload this. We'll give it a second here. Let's refresh. There we go. I just needed a refresh. All right.
Ah, easy business.
So
It's like
we're going live.
unplug it and plug it back in.
Right. You just got to turn the computer off and restart it. Right. So
Yeah.
All right, everyone. I think we've got all of the platforms working. Welcome. This is our Tuesday Build with the CEO. My name is Trevor. I'm the CEO of Coach Catalyst. And as you have probably, or as you can see on the screen, we have a guest today, which is kind of fun. So, Todd, thanks for watching. He's on Riverside. So,
Sweet.
All right, Ashley, you want to give us a quick biography of who is Ashley Goes?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'll probably start like when I first started coaching, was probably like 2017 or so, doing what we all do, training in person. I was started to dabble in some online stuff, but was like mostly in studio all the time, right? So was crushing it, feeling really good about that. And then COVID hit, and like all of us, we had to make the massive pivot to take everything online. Crazy that it was 5 years ago now. I feel like it was yesterday. But anyway, so I always knew, like when I was training in studio, that eventually I wanted to be working for myself. I just didn't really have the avenue to do it yet. And then ultimately the studio that I was training at closed over COVID. They just couldn't stay afloat. So I found that to be the perfect opportunity to start my own thing. So I have been working for myself full time since 2020. Started a coaching company called Hustle and Muscle that I still run to this day. Looks a lot different now than it did previously. I've been through quite a few iterations, but I am starting to pivot into some kind of different some corporate wellness stuff and some exciting projects on that front. And I spend a lot of my time now helping other entrepreneurs, other online business owners build their businesses.
So the big topic for this call is going to be, or this training is going to be around kind of partnerships and utilizing other kind of avenues. A lot of people think, hey, if I go online, I need to use social media as like my way to get clients, which isn't necessarily the case. And something we talk about a lot here at Coach Catalyst is that's a long game. And so, but let's kind of back up, because I think there's an interesting piece to talk about, because there are a lot of coaches that are in the offline world that maybe enjoy it, but would like to create an online component. And so let's unpack that a little bit on how that worked. Obviously, you had like the urgency of COVID, which like we hope another pandemic doesn't have to force us to completely change our business models. But there is like a, your back is against the wall, you're up in a corner and you need to figure it out. And so talk to us a little bit about that transition of moving an offline business into the online world. If you were to go back and do it again, what would you do differently?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, so at the beginning, I did what I think we all do, and I started with social media. That's why I talk a lot about kind of coming away from that now, because I was on the hamster wheel for a long time. So I did what I like, the only thing I really knew how to do at that time. And I started investing in mentors and like getting help early because I didn't really know what else to do. I wanted help from somebody that had done it, but kind of the general consensus at that time was like, well, you just use social media. So I had been like posting a little bit, right? Like we all do, just kind of pouring into content. And it just like, it was returning a little bit, and it allowed me to kind of like start to build the infrastructure, if you will. Like I kind of got my first couple of clients from like friends and family, friends of friends kind of thing, right? Like once I started to get the word out of what I was doing. And then I started to pivot into like some of what we'll talk about today, I'm sure, is kind of like, how do I leverage referrals? How do I leverage endorsements, right? This is like that kind of like partnership style. And that was where I saw a lot of the success ultimately over the course of the past few years. Because that is like my following on social media. You guys will see if you look at my Instagram, I have like maybe 2,000 on there. And it has always been that way. It was even smaller than that, maybe 1,200 or so. And again, friends and family when I first started. So doing a little bit of that to get myself up and running. But honestly, I think if I had to do it differently, like if I had to change anything, do it over again now. I think that I would kind of make this like partnership pivot earlier. Like I think I spent a lot of time spinning my wheels on social media, like the trending audio, like how do we get something to go viral in hopes that like that brings in followers, and then the followers like we're converting those to clients. And it's just this kind of pipe dream that I don't honestly think ever really happens for the majority of true business owners.
So, I mean, for context, what did your online business look like? Like, what were your deliverable? Actually, I should start with like kind of who did you serve? What problems
Mm-hmm.
were you solving? And kind of what were your deliverables?
Yeah. So all women, well, yeah, probably 99% women, generally like either previous athletes or kind of the type of girl that is not afraid to lift heavy, and kind of wants that community. So I was working with women all over the US, which was really cool. Deliverables were, I was using an app at the time. So was training like probably about 4-week blocks, and again, kind of getting nitty gritty here, but depending on what their goals were, right? It was all pretty much like pretty similar, 3 to 4 day a week. We're talking nutrition's my background. So that's what I went to school for. My degree's in nutrition and wellness. So I got kind of like hyper focused on like, what are you eating? How much are you eating? What does that look like? And like any good coach does, right? We're kind of talking, what are your long-term goals and how do we reverse engineer them? And how do we break those into kind of daily action items or weekly action items? So all of those were kind of what I was keeping tabs on. And then I would set it up so that I was doing essentially weekly touch points, yes, like in a more formal check-in setup, but like multiple times throughout the week. And I think honestly, and I don't even really talk a ton about this. One of the biggest selling points for a lot of those clients that came in, or truly what kept them around for a while, is I focused so hard on the community that I built inside the business. So because a lot of the demographic was more or less kind of this like 20 to 30 to 40-year-old girl who was like trying to feel really good, kind of gain the confidence back, all of that jazz. It was a really fun place. Like we had the group chat going all the time. We did like monthly challenges almost every month, right? We would do like these smaller, like I would run like a week-long wall sit challenge, and it was like $50 Starbucks gift card to the winner kind of thing. And these little pieces that made a huge difference in kind of building the camaraderie over time. So that was a huge, when we're talking deliverables, I think that was a piece that was super high leverage for me when I think about it retrospectively.
And the model was one-to-one coaching, correct? Or was it
Yep.
like a group challenge programs?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. All 1-to-1. So everything was personalized. Everything was customized. All of their interaction with me was predominantly just like, so they had direct access to me. But it also is like this group chat is something that everybody's involved in, no matter kind of like where you're at in your journey. So you have not only the the accountability from somebody who is an authority figure, right? Yes. But also that kind of like peer accountability. I think that was really valuable too.
Sweet. So, all right, I think that's some good context in kind of what the actual business structure sort of look like. So let's kind of get into this. So social media wasn't a big, lever for you as far as growing it. So let's talk about some of those things that were kind of levers that allowed you to start growing the business.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the first big one for me was referrals. Like when I first started to understand the power of like, I think social proof is the best way to talk about it. Like, because when we think about it, and I kind of nerd out about some of the human psychology stuff, right? When we see somebody else seeing success in what it is that they're doing, we inherently are going to trust whatever it is that they're doing to get there, right? Like the vehicle that they're using to get there. So when it came to like, okay, how do I kind of like spread this message a little bit more? It made sense to me to have all of my clients kind of showcase what they were doing and who they were doing it with. And then kind of using that as a jumping off point to like, hey, if you kind of help me share this, one, I'm incentivizing it, obviously, right? I want to reward you for anybody that you're bringing in. So kind of building that internally, but also just kind of like giving them the framework for like, hey, do you mind like sharing this in this way? And trying to give as much instruction as possible just around like, when you share this, like, can you share this like photo and like add a couple words about your experience and like see if there's anybody out there. And I have a formula that I use inside the business now, but like essentially just kind of see what we can do with our clients' audiences, right? And we can do this with friends and family as well. But how do we get to kind of like that second degree of separation almost? Like there are so many people that we can essentially like audiences that we can borrow almost when we're talking about kind of this like pool of potentials. So I think that was kind of step one for me moving in that direction.
So tell me a little bit more about this kind of formula because
Mhm.
I think a lot of coaches will be like, like I don't know if I want to ask my clients like
Mhm.
to do that. How would you frame it in a way, or how do you even start having that conversation with a client to be able to showcase some of the success that they're having?
Yeah, yeah. So I think that and something that I ran into, which was very common, is like a lot of clients that we work with don't really want to. They don't feel super comfortable sharing their like progress pictures, right? I think is probably part of what you're alluding to. So yeah, in some cases, it was more of like. I guess let me take a step back. I talk a lot about like, not like putting all of our eggs in the social media basket. Not to say that I don't use any at all. I do think that it can be a really valuable piece when it comes to like just having a presence, right? So somebody knows who we are. So I would have like, I would ask a client to just share, like reshare a post that I had already made. So they're not really putting anything about themselves on there. If anything, it's like I mentioned, a couple words about their experience. But rather than like having to put up their progress pictures if they're not comfortable with that, or like talk about any of their personal experience, because I think a lot of that can be inherently really emotional and not really something that people want to share. So the approach is something that is like a little bit less invasive, I guess is the best way to put
Hmm.
it, as an ask, right? Like, do you mind sharing this like last post that I put up, even on your story, or something like that, as opposed to like, can you share your whole journey and tag me
Right.
in it?
So, I mean, is it just a straight up like, hey, I made this post. Would you be open to sharing it? I mean, is it that simple?
Essentially, yeah. Different clients are more willing than others, right? I think we can generally get a really good gauge on just as humans, right? We can get a good gauge on like who would be willing to share, like if they even use their accounts online, whatever that may look like.
Hmm.
And even if there are some, like I had plenty of instances where I was working with clients that like were not using their, like they didn't have a social media presence or whatever. And I would just ask like, who do you have kind of in your world? Like what friends do you have? Like, would any of your colleagues benefit from this? Right. And I'm kind of just reminding, I was very upfront about like, I'm incentivizing referrals, right? Like I very much, I would like post it in the group chat when somebody brought somebody in, like brought a referral in, I'm like celebrating positive feedback loop. Right. So essentially taking a step back there, yeah, it's the simple ask. So I think I might have got off track on your question there, but
What were the incentives? Like, what were you
mm,
incentivizing with? Was it like a gift card or free training, or what were the incentives?
yeah, I'm actually glad you used those as examples. I would often give the option. So, and this is going to vary, right, person to person, depending on like what your margins are and what your people like and all that jazz. But I generally had it set up as like you kind of have this ultimatum, and it was you could. I'm going to butcher the numbers a little bit, but like at the peak, it was essentially you can have like 150 as a bonus in like a gift card, right, or like a Amazon gift card, whatever, or I'll double it and you can use $300 towards your next month of training, or, and like those numbers look a little different, depending, but essentially that. So they could kind of take their pick, because everybody loves the option.
Right. I mean, for each coach, it's going to be a little bit different, right? If you know what a client, quote unquote, is worth to you, right? What the
Mm-hmm.
lifetime value of your client is, you're essentially chalking this up to be a marketing cost, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a cost of running an ad, it's a cost of putting up a billboard, whatever, however
Mm-hmm.
you want to generate awareness about what you're doing. It comes at a cost. And so I think sometimes I'm glad that you did like the 150 mark, because I think if we are selling a service that is in the hundreds, not just rewarding someone with like a $10 Starbucks card,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I think we can do better than that. So no, I like that. I love that. So referrals were a big thing early on. Some people will be like, hey, what if I really don't have a whole lot of clients yet to actually get those referrals from?
Mm-hmm.
And so what would you kind of suggest for that coach?
Yeah. This is something actually that I wish that I dove into sooner. This is another good point. You said, like, what would you have done differently? I think that I would have dove into more strategic partnerships a lot sooner. So what I mean by that is like, think about the type of client that you serve, right? So like, depending on who that, like what that demographic is, like think about where you can find them, like who do they follow, what do they fund, where can they be found, kind of thing. So when we can pinpoint that, we can figure out, okay, like if I know that, I know where else they're going, I know where else they're doing business, how do I use those places to get in front of them in a different context? So this for like when I work with fitness coaches now, when I work with online fitness business owners, that could be you're partnering with like a massage therapist, that could be or a physical therapist. It could be I have a client that I just did an intensive with last week who we are working on him partnering with one of the barbers in town because he works with guys like in their 30s, and this guy's like the go-to barber, and he's got like a line out the door every week, right? And so he's starting to work with somebody like him who, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the entirety of that is overlap, right? You're not working with exactly all the same clients, but if we can get in front of those type of people in a different way, that's perfect. So approaching something like that can feel a little bit daunting off the bat, but it really is just like, how do we incentivize, how do we provide value for somebody who owns a business, runs a business, who is targeting the same types of people?
So I want to point something out that you said that hopefully people caught up on that were listening. Is this was an online fitness business, correct? That was the person was their
He's
main
like
model.
half and half.
Okay. So this idea of partnering with brick and mortars, I think sometimes we think, hey, if our delivery mechanism is virtual, right,
Hmm.
or even hybrid, that kind of stuff, we think that many times we have to win clients virtually,
Hmm.
right? Whereas offline, brick and mortar, going in, shaking someone's hand, looking them face to face, having a conversation, going out for coffee can accelerate the relationship development and can lead to results a whole lot quicker.
Hmm.
And so that was a really interesting example with like fitness, potentially online, and a barber. And my guess is part of the strategy is around he's training the barber, and then the
Hmm.
barber is going to share and talk about his experience with this. And then that person has influence over, I mean, he's sitting in a chair with people for 30 minutes, right? And it's
Hmm.
like, hey man, you're looking good. Like, what have you been doing? Oh, I got this coach, he's helping me with this and that. And like those conversations, I think it's a really interesting collaboration, because there is a lot of influence out there, but most people want to think like fitness and barber, but it's not actually about the profession. It's about the demographic. It's about the person we're trying to reach.
Yeah, I do think that there's so much like potential in online business owners partnering with brick and mortar. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that a lot of us as online business owners try to, like you said, kind of stay in this bubble and have this like, I think it turns into a reliance on social media, because that's like, I mean, other than what Google SEO and those kind of things, but I think predominantly we have this just like inherent reliance on like, okay, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever, where we can be just sending emails behind the scenes. Like my fitness company that I still run, I just recently partnered with a boxing gym near where I am right now. And I'm like going to go in and do a workshop for them. And all of my deliverables are, aside from that one, 2-hour session on like a Saturday morning that I do, all like anything that comes of that afterwards is all going to be virtual. So it's definitely worth the investment to set up an event like that, or whatever that might look like, depending on the person and what they do. But something like that, for the ROI on that amount of time in person for working online is insane. And I think there's so much opportunity there that's getting overlooked.
Right. You like something like that. And this is something we talk about a lot at Coach Catalyst with coaches, is like, how do you like own your community? Like,
Mhm.
even though your delivery mechanism is virtual, is digital, you can still be known as your community as the go-to person for nutrition or fitness or health or transformations or whatever those are, because it's a whole lot easier to get known in your local community, because there's so many groups that are looking for speakers and just going in
Mhm.
and basically spreading the word locally. And then that creates great content for social media, right? Because if you're on stage, if you're in front of people, you're automatically going to be deemed as an expert, right? Whether
Mhm.
you're an expert or not, like whether the information you are spewing is good or not, right? Like it doesn't
Mhm.
matter.
Yeah.
But just that point of view of giving presentations and being in front, and then taking that content and then basically distributing it online. And then I don't, we always look at online as like a long game. It's like,
Mhm.
it takes a really long time to build, and it's good to do because, like you said earlier, we have the resume aspects of it, where a lot of people are they're going to go on Instagram and they're going to search you. Like, what does your
Mhm.
profile look like? Is it put together? Are you a real person? Like, are you a
Yeah.
serial killer? Like, we're trying to just figure all of that out. Right.
Yeah.
And so we need that piece. But I think so many people think, oh, I'm virtual. I want to deliver virtually, digitally. So I need to win Instagram. I need to win Facebook. I need to try and get all my clients from there, where it's like, yeah, it's a piece of it. And probably not a big piece, especially early on.
Mhm. Yeah, and to your point, I think a lot of like I mentioned, I do think that a presence on social media is really valuable, but like using it as a sole means can be challenging. And one of the biggest keys, I guess, to put it lightly, for me has been I'm always documenting when I'm putting something on social media versus performing versus like creating, right? So I think a lot of us are, and this is when I first started, I initially was trying to create as much as possible, and I'm trying to like build content from scratch. Whereas now I'm just like recording stuff I'm already doing, right? So like that, a good example is like you were just saying, when you step on stage, right? Have like pictures and video of that, right? So like that, the nutrition workshop that I'm going to do for that gym is I'll just make sure it's all recorded, and then I
Mhm.
clip that up, and that's what I'm using for social media posts, right? I'm not like trying to reinvent the wheel, if you will. I'm just like, things that I'm already doing are showcasing again that authority, that expertise. It's just a byproduct almost, and that
Right.
makes it so much easier.
I like it. So, for anyone that's kind of been joining us late, we've got referrals, or what we kind of talked about first, right? As leveraging your client base to get one degree away from there, because to be honest, your clients' friends are probably very similar to them and a lot of respect. And so, getting that vote of confidence, right, just helps move someone through the know, like, and trust pipeline a lot quicker. And then moving into like strategic partnerships, really brainstorming. Well, I think really it comes back to, who do I serve, right? And what
Hmm.
problems am I solving? Because if we're not clear there, it's hard to go find those people, right? If we're kind of like, well, I serve women that want to lose weight. Cool.
Hmm.
Like that, are they 20? Are they 40? Are they 60? Are they pre, peri, postmenopausal? Like, do they need to lose 100 pounds? Do they need to lose 10 pounds? Do they want to get on stage? Like, there's a lot of layers and levels to this. And so I think getting crystal clear there, at least now the audience is like, okay, cool. What other services do these people utilize locally? I'd look within a 10-mile radius, right? What other things do they buy, right? Because could there be a partnership with a boutique? Could there be a partnership with a cosmetic company? Could there be a partnership with a clothing brand? Like, what other things are they involved in, right? And there was, I think you used like some F's with this. It was like fun. Like, give me those ones again, because that was good
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah. So who do they follow? What do they fund? Where are they found?
So we've got the offline, right? Where are they buying stuff, and like who are the people that they're interested in, right? Who are,
Hmm.
what other things? And I always like to look like what's a like a 1 degree away thing, like fitness and fashion, right? They're not competing demands, but people might follow. They're really into this type of fashion, so they're following these people, and they're also into fitness, right?
Hmm.
Not necessarily always like, hey, they follow all these different fitness whatever influencers, whatever we want to call, whatever
Hmm.
we want to call these people, right? So any other ones that you found either personally when you've been growing the business or in working with other clients that you found to be really helpful?
Those are the two like heavy hitters. Special appearances are another good one. I guess you could kind of categorize that under partnership too. But like going into, like I just mentioned, I guess you could kind of put this into both buckets, and there's a lot of overlap, right? But like I just mentioned, that like nutrition workshop that I'm going to do, that to me is more of like a special appearance thing, right? That's a one-time thing. And a lot of businesses, like you mentioned, a lot of places are looking for speakers, are looking for like anybody that's hosting an event wants vendors, right? So like the concepts of like a special appearance can turn into a longer term strategic partnership, joint venture, whatever you want to call it down the line. But it really doesn't have to be anything super like committed to start. It can just be, hey, you need this thing, like you need a speaker at this thing, you need a guest for this thing. Hey, I know how to do that. Like I can
Mm-hmm.
come share my expertise. And I think that we almost get ahead of ourselves because it can feel really daunting thinking about like who do I partner with, like as if it's this marriage off the bat thing. Like I think I look at a special appearance as like a first date type situation. So who's hosting an event that we can get to, like thinking about, I have a couple of clients in the Columbus area. I don't know if anybody is familiar with the concept of the Arnold. That's coming up in the next month or two, whatever. And so a lot of the businesses around there hold events because it's this massive, like thousands of people come into the city for this thing. So a lot of the businesses in the area will hold events. And so they all need vendors, right? So like any other small businesses can go in and like offer to set up a table, and like it's helpful, right? You're not like necessarily paying for something. Even if you are, it's probably less than ad spend. So like thinking about how do I get myself into those rooms, or how do I get in front of those crowds as more of a special appearance, and then that can turn into a strategic partnership down the line.
And a great place for this too is like your local chamber, like your local
Mm,
chamber of commerce, right? They're usually like and if it's a really big community, there'll be multiple of them kind of in different pockets of the community, but they're kind of like they're the connector between all of the businesses in all of like the brick and mortars inside of a kind of geographic area or community, right? And they can be they can be a great ally because they want to help, they want to connect, they want to introduce you to people. And like it's like $200 or $250 or something to like join for the year, and then you can show up to the events and you can like get to know people and do all of those things. And so I think that's a really interesting way, again, like let's disregard online offline delivery model, like that doesn't really matter. We're
mhm.
trying to find people that we can serve. And so we can't disregard offline if we have an online component. So I think that's an easy place for someone to go. That is kind of like the shotgun approach where you can get a lot of people, or at least know where do you go next.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that idea. I have not done any work with the chamber myself, but that as a concept, yeah, I think that that's a great idea for anybody in any community, really.
So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned this as we were we were talking about as we were kind of like prepping a little bit for this call. You talked a little bit about corporate wellness.
Mhm.
I think this is a really interesting one, and we've had a lot of people ask about it. I've shared my views on it. We've done it in a number of different concepts, really physically with brick and mortars and that kind of stuff. And I'm just curious on your experience, because I think this is another opportunity for a lot of coaches in this space, because there are businesses, there are small to mid-sized corporations that are starting to think about investing in their employees' health. And just tell me a little bit about your experience, what's working for you, what you guys are doing, where you're going with it.
Yeah. Well, I want to preface with like my experience is very limited so far. This is a much newer endeavor over the past couple of months. So just kind of something that I'm starting to
Mhm.
collect data on more than anything. I will say it's not easy
Right.
transparently to get, because when we're looking at these businesses that truly have the budget, to the corporations really that truly have the budget to spend on something like a corporate wellness program, they're not easy to get in contact with. So having to kind of dig for an HR email to be able to like have a email drip campaign, right? And so we're setting them up essentially the same way I would set up a campaign for any new prospect coming in. Somebody signs up to do something with me, but I'm sending them as cold emails. So I am, it's funny, like for so long have been like very anti like cold DM, like I won't do any B2C cold. I've never loved that. But B2B, that's really all you can do. Right. So I am just kind of firing off emails, very strategically, obviously having to kind of figure out like, who am I sending them to? Meaning like what companies am I sending them to? Having done a little bit of research on like, do they already have a wellness program? Is there a gap? Can I see that they're struggling in some way? Which is hard to tell, right, from like online because everything looks
Mhm.
all polished. But kind of trying to figure out like from this like general idea of who could I be helpful to, and then finding a contact from there, starting that email drip campaign, and then it's just a waiting game. Everything in corporate takes so long. Like we as
Mhm.
entrepreneurs are like, if you guys are anything like I am, like I want it done yesterday, and I
Mhm.
move very quickly. So I am having to exercise my patience muscle a lot because things tend to take a long time. I'm just now starting to kind of have these initial meetings coming up over these next couple of weeks. So very excited about it. Very like looking forward to what comes of it. It's been kind of a long road that I've been putting this together. So I'm excited for what's next and to be able to share that soon. But yeah, experience is, like I said, limited so far.
Have you had any industries that you find are more receptive to corporate wellness
Mm,
than others?
tech. Which is I think that you just mentioned too, right? Like the idea that a lot of companies are starting to invest in this, and I think we see more often than not like the startup type, like cutting edge, very. I don't necessarily want to say newer, but maybe kind of right. These kind of like the like flashy, showy type, like Silicon
Mhm.
Valley go to, like all of the AI companies and such. Those are the ones that are more like ready, I think. Obviously, they are much higher margin too, so they have the ability to spend. And a lot of their people are working a zillion hours a week, so they want to take care of them as much as they can. I mean, we look at like the Google campus, right, and like what those employees are offered is insane.
Mhm.
So I think that like it's starting to become a trend that these corporations that are asking a lot more of their people are in turn taking a lot better care of them. So I do think that over the next, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to see it be the norm. Like, I think that there are going to be people that turn down jobs because they don't have the wellness program. And maybe not that specifically, but kind of like looking as with that as kind of like a lens.
Right.
So I think that the opportunity is going to get bigger over time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so what are you thinking about for your deliverables from a corporate wellness standpoint?
It's going to depend big time on what they're looking for, because it's going to differ if the company has 50 employees versus 5,000 employees. I've been trying to figure out kind of just on my end, like what does like how do I need to staff for something like that? Am I
Mhm.
going to? It's funny. I actually was doing a lot of research recently over the past like week or two, just on there are like corporate wellness companies
Mhm.
specifically dedicated to this, right? Obviously, and almost all of them are specifically tech driven, like they're just tech platforms. So I do think that as coaches, we have a very specific upper hand, very unique advantage in that we are humans. And I will say, I think that it's a winning trait, yes, but it makes it so much more challenging to scale and to serve these much larger companies. So figuring out company to company what that looks like is going to differ depending on kind of like what they need and what they're looking for, and then what I am able to deliver from
Right.
like the capacity that we have.
Yeah, I mean, it's most likely a blend, right? Like
Hmm.
you have to have a tech component that
Yeah.
allows you to deliver at scale, but then can you add a human component behind it? And even for the people that are listening right now that are maybe like, hey, like I'm not ready to go after that. Like just like what I said before, is there a local chamber that you can go join and you can just start telling people you've created a corporate wellness program that helps employees do X, Y, and Z, right? Someone will be like, oh, interesting. Like I've been looking for that.
Hmm.
Right. And so just spreading awareness about what you're doing. And maybe you partner with a local gym and you get a bunch of discounted memberships that you can include as part of it. Like I think there's a lot of ways that you can get strategic about this kind of stuff. But it just comes down into having conversations and making
Hmm.
people aware of what you're doing. And I think one of the easiest ways is just start talking to people.
Start talking, man.
Right. And there's a whole lot of businesses that have 5, 10, 15 employees that you could put together something that's very attractive for that type of thing. And at
Hmm.
the end of the day, even if you were just to be able to go in and give free lunch and learns to all of
Hmm.
these businesses, like pick businesses that have employees that fit your niche, right? That fit the people that you serve in your coaching business, and now that
Hmm.
becomes a lead source,
Free
right?
leads. Yeah.
Right back to your kind of bread and butter, your coaching business, right?
Hmm.
And so I think one thing early on is don't feel like we need to get paid for everything. Like
Yes.
go out and deliver value for free early on in a bunch of different places, collect email addresses, right?
Hmm.
Because it's really actually hard to do that on the internet without paying for this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
so like you typically have to pay for it somewhere, either with money or with time.
Hmm.
And at the beginning, we typically have a lot more time than we have money. So like use your resources wisely.
Yeah.
Anything else that I missed that you're like, hey, I really wanted to talk about that.
Mm, I don't think so. I think we hit on everything. We had a pretty wide range of topics. This was awesome.
Yeah, it was good. My brain was kind of like all over the place. We got the major ones that we needed to get done, but we get these questions a lot, and I love to hear
Mhm.
other people's opinions on like what's working for them.
Yeah.
Just so we get some more data points on it. So Ashley is in the Facebook group. So if you do have
Mhm.
questions on this episode, if you have questions at all, just tag her in the group, and she'll get back to you there. If people want to learn a little bit more about you, Ashley, where can they find out more?
The website is under construction at the moment, so I'm just going to give you guys my Instagram. It's just my name, Ashley_goes. Reach out. Any questions you have. I love to chat, and like anything that I talked about. If you want me to expand any more on that, especially given kind of my experience and what I'm working on, I would love to be an open book. I'll chat about it.
Cool. I love it. Well, I'm going to be following up in like 6 months to ask about the corporate wellness stuff because I think
Yeah.
this is I think it's an interesting concept. I think it can be a nice secondary revenue model or potentially a
Hmm.
primary revenue model if you hit some big stuff with it. So
Definitely.
time will
Yeah. Yeah.
tell.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'm hoping to have all good things to report back to you.
Right. All right. Well, I like it. Thanks, Ashley, for coming on.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. We'll chat soon.
Sounds good.
Bye.
All right. There we
What?
go.
Who?
The other ones should stop. I never really know. It's not streaming to them, so then it just kind of like
It like freezes or whatever.
like it just goes blank or something. I don't know. Cool. Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. This was it was awesome to chat, and I'm excited about all the I've meant to, and I